This is our new kingdom borders. Pretty big economy. As Vanki's. Oh shit! I totally should have started building stuff before I pushed forward. Yeah. So this is another thing. You could also build buildings within your baronry. This is something I totally forgot about before we skipped forward. It takes time to build stuff. So when we did our skip forward, it would have been nice to, I don't know, have set these up so that they might have been done by the time we finished things. Usually I have a little setup of how I like to build things. Usually I like to have longhouse in the middle because a lot of the stuff you could build get affected by the longhouse. So for instance, barracks gain additional stability while adjacent to the longhouse. So generally I put the barracks here and it's adjacent to the longhouse. So 1 + 1 to stability and military. And then, just as you can see, like it affects all this stuff. But yeah, we'll deal with that when we get to that. Then I also built the where is it? Tavern. The tavern gets a +1 to relationships when it next to the longhouse, and then a +1 to espionage when next to the barracks. Generally, I put it here, so it's adjacent to both of these, so it gets all the stats: economy, espionage, and relations. Then generally, I build the shop, which is economy when next to the thing. I usually build it here, but I don't generally build the shop if that location has a artisan, because you'll have to build an artisan's shop, which I think also does this, I believe. So I don't usually build it right away. Then usually I'll build like the herbalist house, usually next to a shrine. So I usually like to build it like here. Where is it? Oh fuck, I just missed it. So I'll either like to build it like here, it's like one of these 4 slots because the shrine's here. Usually I try to not keep it in I usually put it in a place that doesn't really affect other stuff. And yeah. I also like to build the windmill because I usually build the granary here. The granary and the brewery. Because the brewery doesn't have to be next to anything, it just has to be in the settlement with it. And I usually build it in this settlement because this settlement gets many slots. Like, because essentially your barony will become a town, which eventually will become a city. And every time a residence upgrades, it gets more slots to put things in. So for instance, this place gets a lot of slots, so usually a windmill, and then the granary, and the brewery all could like stack with one another to get all those buffs. I'm not gonna build it now because I don't want to spend all my BP just right away. But I'm just gonna, I'm just mentioning it. Also, because we explored a lot of the outskirts and completed the map, we could put a barony. We could build a town basically. Generally, I like to build it here, in between the North Gnarl Marshes and the outskirts, because once you unlock teleportation, you could start teleporting between your barren places. So generally, normally there's a lot of like quests that involve coming to Oleg's trading post to talk with Botkin. So instead of having to walk there late game, you could just teleport to here and then walk over. And also, there's a lot of quests in the North Narrow Marshes that appear for like companions. And other stuff, so I generally like to keep it around here. Plus there's old locations that you have to go to anyways. It's just a nice place to have. And generally for the North Gnarl Marshes, I'll build it like here, or maybe down here, just so that you have, like, I like to build it at borders. Like for instance, once we get Silver Step, I generally build a town right here, so that we have access to teleportation when we eventually come towards the livings, whatnot. And I usually build, like, for instance, a town right here in South Gnarl Marshes, so that when we visit Patax or whatever, we have easy access to just boom, you're in Patax. Or for instance, in Glenbon, I usually build one like right here, same concept. Basically just corners and whatnot. Just for ease of access. Came lands really doesn't matter. Generally, like, it'd be good to have one down here. Because, like, since this, I have it here, like, a lot of the South Narrow Marshes is hard to get to. So having one in the middle of the Came lands, or even above here to have access to Varnhold, which we don't have access to for a while. Because, like, I believe once you go to the mountains, they're like, do you want to visit Varnhold? Or basically, if you get anywhere near Varnhold, they're like, do you want to visit Varnhold? And then you get warped to Varnhold, and then you get warped out of Varnhold. So you basically cannot explore Varnhold. So, until, like, later in the game. So yes, we got our first event here, Troubled Lands. Basically, you choose an advisor to go deal with it. And if they succeed, they gain +3 to military. So our military is 8, so it'd go up to 11. You could also use these crisis points to increase the bonus they have +5. It's a DC 12, so I should succeed. But yeah. And then Harem wants to talk to me specifically, as well as the counselor wants to talk to me specifically, which requires me to be in the throne room. Hello. Sorry, just taking a sip. Tristian lowers his head. Greetings, Baron. I'm sorry to take you away from your other affairs, but your people need you. When the Stolen Lands were freed from the Stag Lord, people sighed in relief. Many still confused by their swift change of fortune. Truth be told, they simply don't know what to think of their new Baron, nor what to expect of you. Will you be a fair ruler for all, or only those of wealth and status? Let us reassure your people. Show them that where your favor truly rests. Perhaps a small celebration will help win them over. Of course, you could spend the same amount on a luxurious dinner for those wealthiest in your barony, but I recommend organizing a fair for the common people, the ones upon those shoulders your power truly resides. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, sure. Tristian smiles warmly. Oh yeah, I didn't actually read what it said. We shall hold a fair for the common people. I want them to know that I hold them closest to my heart. We shall hold a common celebration where everyone will be welcome, including the poor and downtrodden. This is the greatest gift a ruler could give to his people. Harem. Harem looks embarrassed. He runs his fingers through his beard and clears his throat a few times, then speaks at last. I heard. Sorry, I need to get back to his voice. I heard. Not that it's important, but well. He clears his throat again. I heard an ancient trade route built by the dwarves of the 5 Kings Mountains runs through these lands. I don't know what happened to them, nor where they went. Unforgiving, time spares no one. But the roads itself is still there, and possibly not only the road. Harem holds his beard in his fist. Well, Braden Lachance, I have a request. If you find any dwarven ruins in the area, I'd like to see them with my own eyes. Why do you ask of this? Harem fiddles with his beard again. I shouldn't, probably, but it's like a wound that's never healed. You know, it will only hurt more, but you still need to scratch it. Of course, it's foolish and vain, but I still wish to look at them. Of course, Harem, if I find any dwarf ruins, I'd take you to them. Thank you, Braden Lachance. Thank you. So yeah. Harem wants to join us on adventuring. Jahad Kathkin. Your Grace, I was at Oleg's trading post recently, and I noticed old Bodkins just standing there, bored to death with nothing to do. This is most unfortunate. After all, the old grumbler is very knowledgeable alchemist. However, he has no use for his skills, since the locals need nothing more than the simplest of healing potions. Then it struck me, why don't you hire him as your court alchemist? His decorations and tinctures would certainly prove most useful to you. Also, it might be cheaper than simply buying from him and or some other merchant. Interesting. Something to consider. The court alchemist. The counselor were. Wait, oh yeah, we did this. We did it. So Tristan's thing with the banquet, basically, they'll ask you, "Hey, we should do something. What do we do?" You give your option, and then you actually go with them to do it, and it boosts their rank from one by one. So Tristan would be our first counselor to get to rank 2, basically. We want to get Arcane up as much as we can, because I want teleportation. I think you need Arcane 3 to get teleportation, and it's not really needed now, but it definitely will be beneficial later, having teleportation. Like, teleportation is really good in this game. Reduce person. Okay. So, you know what? We've practically done a episode talking to companions. Let's talk to Tristian. We haven't been able to. Tristian smiles as you approach. Greetings. How may I help this humble chosen of the great Sarenrae, or how may this humble chosen of the great Sarenrae help you? Tell me about yourself. About myself? I wouldn't know where to begin. Tristian pauses for a moment in thought. You know my name, my faith? I follow Sarenrae, and I've traveled from Padashi Empire of Kalesh to here. What else do you want to know? Forgive me, but from your manner and appearance, you don't strike me as a Kleshite. Tristan smiles softly. You have nothing to apologize for. Truly, I received my name and appearance from my parents, who come to Kalesh from afar. I never knew them, for the fate that had separated us when I was young. I grew up in Kalesh, raised by the followers of Sarenrae. My home is where my heart is, within temples of the great goddess, among the wise and generous men that look upon themselves the care of a child that was so unlike them. I learned mercy and patience from an early age, and it is these virtues that have made me the man I am today. Do you enjoy traveling? Tristian nods and his eyes light out. Oh yes. No library no archive, however large, would ever have allowed me to learn as much as the world as I have in my journeys. It was only outside the temple walls I realized every living being is a world unto themselves. A world where many contradictions and passions coexist. Each realm leaves a mark on the lives that live there. Only by visiting it and by breathing the same air, walking the same soils, can you understand its people, what drives them, what frightens them, their dreams, how they honor their gods. Gods. Doesn't being outside the temple make you uncomfortable? Tristian shakes his head. There are many ways to honor one's gods, Braden Lachance. It is true shrines play a role in the lives of many of the faithful, but even more find other ways to serve Sarenrae. The healing light values good deeds above all else. Sorry. I cannot stand by and watch evil claim others. Tristian thinks for a moment, raises an eyebrow. Perhaps there's another reason why I chose to go on my pilgrimage, leaving behind the temples of Kalesh. Tristian touches his chest. My faith is in my heart and in my hands. Millions honor Sarenrae in her temples. And my soul is filled with joy when I think of their devotions to the goddess. Nevertheless, my path is a different one. Do you know where you're going next? No, my thoughts were far from it. My mission's here. My information for my mission here is not done yet. Tristian stares at you in surprise. Why do you ask? Do you wish me to leave your lands? Of course not. You're a cop. By the way, this is like a romance thing, but although only females can romance him, but this is like the romantic option. And he's like, sorry, I if you say that, he's like, I appreciate the offer. I appreciate the sentiment, but that is not the way I swing. So, yeah. Of course not. You're a comrade in arms. I trust you completely. Tristian faces lights up. Thank you. I am pleased I could be of assistance. Let's discuss something else. Tristian lowers his head. Forgive me if my stories have bored you. I'm not accustomed to speaking about myself, and in truth, take a little enjoyment in it. Will you tell me of Sarenrae? Sarenrae is the goddess of temperance and patience. Solarflame Goddess teaches us compassion for the weary and the mercy for those who go astray. What would you like to know of her? I'd like to know the history of your faith. There's much to tell, but I'm afraid I would miss the mark. Um, and I fear I would bore you. Is there something specific you wanted to know? How did Sarenrae come to be? Sarenrae is one of the Galorian's oldest deities. Once she was an angel that gathered armies of her celestial allies behind her. The battle in which she showed her valor decided the fate of the whole world, and in her victory she was awarded with divinity. In the sacred text, Sarenrae is shown to be a beautiful bronze-skinned maiden, her hair dancing flame. Tristian smiles slightly, but her appearance is not what matters. It is the grace that she brings in her touch, healing and salvation. Tell me about this battle you mentioned. What was the act of valor of Sarenrae? Her greatest moment of glory is her battle against the monstrous Rovagog, who threatened to destroy Galarian. Sarenrae delivered a strike that staggered the horrendous creature, allowing her allies to shackle it. Once the rough beast was captured, the goddess split the earth and the gods threw the behemoth into the depths. Once it was done, the goddess sealed the pit and commanded her faithful to stay away from the scar that was left in the land. Um, I believe this is the world wound, right? Tristian falls silent for a few moments. Alas, mortal beings are imperfect. Not even the most faithful among us can always follow their deity's commandments. When such commandments were meant to save the world and their followers, when save the world and their followers, I for one pray for the goddess is never again as furious as she was with Gormaz. You mentioned Gormaz. What happened to it? Tristan sighs. An error of faith, perhaps a lesson, but it speaks of the danger when one listens to mortal words and stops listening to their faith. Sarenrae forbade her followers from coming near the place of Ravagog's imprisonment. Some of their priest, some of her priesthood misread her will. We had the priest of a sacred place where the mightiest temples dedicated to the goddess were constructed. The people listened to these sermons and went forth to lands touched by Sarenrae's scimitar. On the scar that sealed the well, they found Gormaz, a holy city that was to become the greatest monument to Sarenrae. Unsurprisingly, after the city was built, all faithful from Galarian traveled there to worship. Sarenrae sent omens and visions urging her followers to leave the dangerous place filled with the dark will of the shackled Ravagug, I think. But in their pride, the people misinterpreted or ignored her signs altogether, where they had once come under Ravagun's influence. Finally, the goddess sent her herald to the city, but the fanatics killed them. Realizing the people had turned from there, the enraged goddess smote Gormuz, raising it from the face of Galarian with a single strike of her scimitar. Tristian shakes his head. Today it's called the Pit of Gormuz, a well of pain and suffering. Okay, I guess it's not the world wound. Tell me about the Pit of Gormuz. Tristian shakes his head. It's a great crevice in the eastern Casmaron. The lands surrounding it are dead and soaked in poison. The Pit of Gormaz seems bottomless, until someone dares gaze into its depths. All who have dared to tell of a strange distant glow, a glow that followed them in their dreams ever since. Throughout all of history, the Pits of Gormaz has spawned creatures, hideous beasts of overwhelming power and driven by only a single desire: destroy everything they see. Some were defeated, such as a Mitris Alunat, whose carapace to this day towers above the capital of Orcian. Others proved too strong to be defeated by mortal hands. Tristian frowned. The most terrible of them all was the Tarrasque. Um, the Tarrasque, the Armageddon engine, who to this day lies dormant beneath Aviston. Have the wars ever been waged in Sarenrae's name? Tristan sighs. Alas, yes, terrible battles were once fought by the followers of Nethes. Uh, Nethes, Gorber, and Sarenrae, in the lands known as Rahadaum. Daum? To my shame, I must admit that this conflict was started by my brothers and sisters when they came to foreign land to make way for the goddess's light with sword and flame. That calamity became known as the Oath Wars, a catastrophe that led inheritors of Rahadam to deny all gods, banning all faith from their lands. Alas, the mortal vessel is imperfect, and even pure faith may be distorted by blind ambition. Tristan goes silent for a moment. And great suffering may occur in its name. I want to ask about something else. Of course, Brayden Lachance. What are the teachings of Sarenrae? Solarflame Goddess is the light of salvation. Even those who have forsaken by other gods, she teaches us mercy and forgiveness for as long as they may be useful to a soul's salvation. Make it sound like the followers of Sarenrae are try to find good even in the bandit with a knife to their throat. Do not mistake compassion for weakness, Brayden Lachance. On one hand of Sarenrae is shrouded in the healing light, the other holds a scimitar. Following their goddess, the priests learn to wield this weapon starting in childhood. They do not hesitate to use it if a dispute cannot be settled peacefully. Sarenrae preaches mercy, yet her compassion is not infinite. We give a second chance to all who ask, but if they reject it, they persist in their sins, they will face the goddess retribution. Are there any undeserving of mercy? Tristian blindly gazes past you into the distance for several moments. When he speaks again, his voice is quiet, reflective, as if echoing his thoughts. Undeserving of mercy. Would even Sarenrae herself find the compassion to? Tristan shudders as if awakening from a trance. Forgive me. Your words, they're not easy ones to reconcile. Even priests such as I. We debate them to this day. What is the point at which a soul is irredeemable, or is failing of a priest, or is it a failing of the priests themselves? These are difficult questions you ask, Brayden Lachance. Questions wise men have debated for centuries. Does a being that has been tainted by evil to its roots, that rejects its own salvation, still deserve compassion? Can those compelled to do evil by others still seek forgiveness? There is no easy answers on these issues among Sarenrae's followers. As for me, I believe every soul carries potential for goodness within. No matter the crime, the guilty may find forgiveness if they repent and cast off the evil that led to the deed. I believe this with all my heart, Brayden Lachance. Never have I met a person so noble in spirit. Sarenrae's blessing was upon me the day you came to my aid. Man, I am so gay for you. I like this idea, even though following through with it demands a lot of spiritual strength. It does, yet I think you are equal to the task, Brayden Lachance. No, I'm certain of it. And one needed to worship Sarenrae to practice mercy. We're all capable of it. What are your duties as a follower of Sarenrae? My goddess strives to see the best, even in the dark gods. She never abandons the hope of their redemption. The priests of Sarenrae follow their teachings, akin to the healing light herself, who emanates warmth and heeds the call in those in need. We aid the suffering in body and spirit throughout Golarion. The priests of Sarenrae are willing to help anyone, no matter the faith of the one in need. Each plea must be heard. Every misfortune deserves compassion, be it peasants seeking a blessing for the harvest or a murderer seeking repentance in the night before their execution. Sometimes mercy of the Solarflame Goddess is the last thing that can save someone's soul from ruin. We have no right to withhold it from the truly repentant. Like that's something else. Of course, I would ask, what else would you like to know? How is Sarenrae worshipped? Many worship Solarflame Goddess in their temples. Some, I it's kind of weird to. I'm sorry, it keeps taking me out of it, but I assume you would call it the Solar Flame Goddess, not Solar Flame Goddess. So every time it's many worship Solar Flame Goddess, I assume although she is the only Solar Flame Goddess, it's still, you would, I assume you would say the Solar Flame Goddess, not just Solar Flame Goddess, which is, it keeps bringing me out of it because I'm like, I always assume there should be a the there, even though there isn't. And maybe I'm the wrong one. I don't have an English major. My friend Bruno does. And Bruno, if you're at this part, what's up? No, you've been watching it. I see you. Anyways, many worship the Solar Flame Goddess in her temples. Some make pilgrimages to the Everlight Oasis, but even those who do not serve the goddess directly rarely shun the festivities dedicated to her. The Sunrot Festival, for one. What are the temples of Sarenrae like? Sarenrae's shrines often open to the sky, and the goddess's life-bringing sunlight. Her light fills the temple, shrouds the parish in warmth, and grants blessing to all in need. In Kalesh, crowds gather during services so that all may feel the blessing of the goddess. The most ingenious devices are constructed by some of the faithful to please the goddess. I have seen a temple of Sarenrae which housed a complicated array of mirrors to direct the light of sun to the altar. I considered playing, by the way, for Brayden because he's a god of Pelor, which is a sun god, and Sarenrae is also a sun god in a way. But I wanted to use the longsword. His story usually requires him with a bastard sword, but so many characters in this game use it, and also it requires feats later on to get, and I wanted to get the feats at the beginning of the game, so it didn't work out. So longsword is as it goes. Plus, no one else uses a longsword in the game unless you build them to use it. So yeah, it just makes sense for me. Tell me, tell me of the Everlight Oasis. I have never been there, but the stories say is a wondrous place, sacred to Sarenrae's faithful. The oasis is located in Zel Shabbar, Zel Shabar, which lies in Kazmarun, Maron, sure. Pilgrims from throughout Galarian travel there, seeking the goddess's blessing. According to legend, the waters of the Everlight Oasis are imbued with the healing properties, and anyone who bathes in them shall be cured of any ailment. Tristan smiles and thought, just imagine a place where people from all around the world come to gather and worship. What stories they must share. What is the Sunrot Festival? The Sunrot Festival takes place on the day of the summer solstice, when prayers of her flock reach Sarenrae the easiest. On this day, Kalesh blooms with color in every corner of Padisha, Padisha, every corner of Padisha, of the Padisha Empire. The people praise their goddess by dancing and singing, setting off fireworks and flying kites. I hope this beautiful custom shall one day reach your lands as well, Brayden Lachance. That's all I want to know about this. I hope to satisfy your curiosity. Oh god, I don't want to say that. No, I don't want to say that. I heard enough about Sarenrae. You ever wish to know more about the goddess, please ask. What brought you to these lands? I've heard rumors. They say these lands are cursed, and the curses are growing stronger, as if something is granting them power. Could not ignore such rumors. What curses are you talking about? Person cocks his head inside and wonder, do you not see? Every word uttered in the heat of an argument turns into a prophecy here, just waiting to fulfill itself. And if it were only for the people, the land itself is seething with curses so ancient their origins are impossible to trace. Take the abandoned temple of Erastil where we met. What happened to it? What force compelled the priests to leave such a magnificent temple behind with the whims of nature? Will we ever know? I myself was nearly slain by beasts. Fortunately, you came along, following Jod, and saved me. I owe you a great debt. You've come a great distance indeed. Tristan laughs heartily. When you look at it that way, then yes. Please do not think I come all the way of Kalesh because of mere curiosity. I was wandering long before that. It is custom of our faith. The farther our paths take us, the more people we help. Well, we may help. Why did Jod see you in his premonition? Sarenrae sees all the good gods and goddesses as her allies. Many have fought alongside a goddess against the menace of Ravagog, Erastil among them. By offering my prayer to Sarenrae, I let her know of my misfortune in the Temple of the Elk. The merciful goddess did not ignore my plea, but whom could have she asked for aid than Erastil, whose faithful is who's strong in these lands? Erastil sent Jod a sign, and then you came by in time to rescue me. To tell the truth, I was certain my journey was at an end, and those creatures were to be the death of me. Spend much time here. We think about the future holds for these lands. These are cruel lands. As I came here, I bore witness to such pain and suffering, but I have seen equal kindness amongst those seeking to protect themselves by their loved ones. The people of stolen lands are resolute and true to themselves. I admire their strength. Alas, I do not know yet what powers, the powers that the curses that flourish these lands. I don't know what powers the curses that flourish these lands. Oh, that flourish in these lands. But I swear I will not leave until we have the answer, and that means to cleanse them. You may forgive me for not swearing on Sarenrae's name, but as late I have troubled the goddess too much as it is, and it would be better served through action, not prayer. Let's change the subject. What would you like to discuss? You call yourself chosen of Sarenrae. What do you mean by that? Sorry, that was a mere jest. Other acolytes at my temple used to tease me with that title. This should tell you how pious and devoted I was compared to them. And yet my faith is strong. Sarenrae knows this and protects me in times of great peril. If something ever threatens my life by her divine powers, I'm transported to a safe location. Some bows. A pleasure. Oh. Yeah, I believe he has an ability called Chosen of Sarenrae. Where is it? I don't see it. Maybe I'm mistaken? Oh, here it is. Chosen of Sarenrae. Sarenrae will automatically save Tristian from dying and teleport him to a safe location should he fall in battle. Yeah, just like Lindsay, Tristian also has a get out of jail free card. Similar to like what's her face? Jaethal, she can't die and will always come back regardless. Same with Lindsay. If she dies, she always comes back. The rest don't have these. I think the Tiefling twins we'll meet later do have this ability in some way. Or at least it's like a minor version of it. But yeah, I'm going to end the episode right here. Next episode, we'll do some level ups, and then I will continue to explore our capital, talking to all the followers that are now a part of our kingdom. So I'd like to thank you all for watching. I'm sticking around for next episode of Corn Such Neat, and I shall see you then. Bye-bye!